347 million tons. That's how much electronic waste the world has generated by 2025. And this number is growing at 21% per year. Every second, 1,000 smartphones end up as e-waste globally. But here's the shocking truth. Only 20% of it gets properly recycled. Today, we're diving deep into the world of green IT to uncover what really happens to your donated laptops in Africa and your traded-in smartphones, and whether these solutions are as sustainable as we think. For some context, the average American generates 46 pounds of electronic waste annually. Meanwhile, 3.7 billion people lack reliable internet access. Organizations such as Computers for Africa and Human IT propose addressing both challenges by providing refurbished Western laptops to African educational institutions and communities. The logic appears straightforward. Developed countries have excess technological resources. Underdeveloped countries have technological needs. However, the reality is more complex. Studies indicate that up to 75% of electronics donated to West Africa are non-functional upon arrival or deteriorate within months. Ghana alone receives an estimated 215,000 tons of second-hand electronics annually, yet only processes about 5% through formal recycling channels. The remainder becomes toxic waste in communities like Agbakbloshi, an enormous e-waste dump. Despite recent improvements, it still processes thousands of tons of Western electronics annually. Children as young as 12 burn cables to extract copper, exposing themselves to toxic fumes and earning a meager $1 to $2 per day. Given that many donated electronics end up in landfills in Africa, are donations of electronic devices to Africa ever a sustainable solution? The answer requires nuanced analysis. Legitimate organizations with transparent reporting mechanisms do provide working equipment and comprehensive training programs. But without proper infrastructure for repair and recycling, even well-intentioned initiatives can create environmental disasters. The European Commission's latest sustainability report emphasizes the critical importance of end-of-life infrastructure development, rather than simply focusing on donation volumes. Now let's examine smartphone recycling systematically. With over 5 billion mobile phone users globally, smartphone recycling has evolved into a massive industry. But how does this process actually work from an environmental and economic perspective? Recent telecommunications industry reports indicate that the global smartphone recycling market is projected to reach $23.8 billion by 2028. Yet environmental scientists question whether current practices truly minimize ecological impact. Let's trace your old iPhone through Apple's trade-in program. You receive a quote online, ship your device, and receive credit toward a new phone. Apple's official sustainability reports claim this process is environmentally beneficial. But what really happens next? Independent environmental audits often reveal a more complex reality than corporate marketing suggests. If it is recycled according to industry processing standards, it is assessed at specialized facilities where trained workers manually disassemble devices, separating batteries, screens, and circuit boards into different categories for material recovery. However, investigative reports from environmental watchdog organizations revealed that data security protocols during this process are often inadequate, with personal information potentially remaining accessible. The valuable materials, gold, silver, rare earth elements, are extracted and can travel thousands of miles to specialized refineries. A single smartphone contains about 0.034 grams of gold and 0.34 grams of silver, making this process surprisingly profitable. But here's the reality check. Globally, only about 20% of e-waste is properly recycled. The rest ends up in landfills or illegal dumping sites like the ones mentioned at the beginning of the video. Let's examine the carbon footprint implications of this global logistics network. Your recycled phone components might travel from California to China for initial processing, then to Ghana for informal material recovery, and finally to India for final material extraction, accumulating thousands of carbon miles. Life cycle assessment studies demonstrate that transportation often accounts for 15 to 20% of the total environmental impact of the recycling process. Corporate sustainability reports frequently underestimate these transportation-related emissions in their environmental impact calculations. So what are the fundamental systemic challenges that environmental scientists and policymakers have identified? First, planned obsolescence means devices become obsolete faster than they actually break, driven by software updates and marketing strategies rather than hardware failure. Second, according to repair industry analyses, repair infrastructure is deliberately limited through proprietary components and restricted access to repair manuals. Third, environmental impact studies consistently show that rare earth mining for new devices often causes more ecological damage than recycling prevents. Here's what evidence-based research indicates is actually working in sustainable electronics management. Designing devices specifically for repairability and longevity. For example, offering modular devices that allow component upgrading rather than complete replacement. Most significantly, several African countries are investing in better local e-waste processing capabilities. The uncomfortable truth that environmental economists consistently emphasize: the most sustainable smartphone is the one you already own. Recent studies from the World Economic Forum suggest that extending device lifespans by just 1 year could reduce environmental impact by 25%. It is also equivalent to taking 2 million cars off the road each year. Before you donate that old laptop or trade in your smartphone, ask these critical questions. Is this actually providing sustainable environmental benefit, or just shifting the problem to communities with less regulatory oversight? Environmental scientists consistently emphasize that prevention trumps remediation in sustainable technology management. However, even with prevention strategies, there will still be e-waste that needs to be recycled. Technology can also help make recycling processes more effective. Emerging technologies in materials recovery offer potential solutions to current recycling limitations. Hydrometallurgical processes can recover up to 95% of precious metals from electronic waste without the toxic emissions associated with traditional smelting. However, these technologies remain economically viable only at large scales, limiting their implementation in regions most affected by e-waste dumping. Consumer behavior research reveals that while smartphones can last 5 to 7 years, consumers typically upgrade every 2.3 years. A UK YouGov survey found 28% of respondents replace their smartphones every 1 to 2 years. This trend is expected to accelerate in the future. In contrast, laptop and tablet owners generally keep their devices for 5 to 6 years, with 75% upgrading within 8 years. Marketing strategies that emphasize incremental upgrades rather than revolutionary changes could extend device lifespans significantly. Educational interventions that highlight the true environmental costs of frequent upgrades show promising results in reducing replacement frequency. The geopolitical implications of e-waste management extend beyond environmental concerns. Rare earth element dependencies create strategic vulnerabilities for technology-dependent economies. China currently controls 90% of rare earth processing capacity. Sustainable electronic strategies must therefore balance environmental goals with supply chain resilience and economic development opportunities for resource-rich but economically disadvantaged regions. Real solutions require comprehensive systemic change that addresses multiple stakeholders, right-to-repair legislation that ensures consumer access to repair services, extended producer responsibility frameworks that hold manufacturers accountable for product life cycles, and supporting local technology ecosystems in underdeveloped countries, rather than treating them as disposal sites. The European Union's Circular Economy Action Plan and similar initiatives in Canada and Australia provide regulatory frameworks that other nations could adapt. They prioritize sustainable practices, waste reduction, and resource optimization.